Welcome to Behind the Wines, a freshly bottled podcast about Australian wine, the wines we love, and the people behind them. My mission is simple. I want to get down into the cellar with sommeliers, stomp some grapes with winemakers, and have chats with our finest critics, growers, retailers, and chefs. Today, we're joined by Hilary Fordham, Group Wine Ambassador at Joval Wines Victoria. With nearly 30 years' experience, Hilary is a true veteran of the Australian wine industry. From strategic sales to brand development, Hilary's done it all. But her real passion lies in wine education. This episode comes from you from the stunning Joval offices in Abbotsford, a location befitting one of the most respected fine wine distributors in this country, and the perfect setting for wine training and connection, and of course, conversation. So let's dive into a story and the power of wine education. Welcome to Behind the Wines, Hilary.
Thank you, Brent. Thank you for having me.
So you've been at Joval Wines now for nearly 30 years. What first drew you to the wine industry?
Well, I celebrated my 30th anniversary here in January, actually. So just a little over 30 years, which is quite unbelievable, hard to believe. I kind of fell into it by accident, which a lot of people probably say that's what happens. Working in a restaurant in South Melbourne, and there was a woman there called Peter Price, who was our rep for a company called FD&C. Joval Wines, that FD&C was an earlier incarnation of what Joval Wine was to become. And I thought, wow, that looks like a good job. And we became friends, and I started doing the wine list at O'Connell's. And then after a couple of years, she said to me, look, there's a job coming up as an area manager, as a rep on the road. Are you interested? And I took it and really haven't looked back from there. And that was over 30 years ago.
How has your role evolved from sales and brand development to wine education?
Well, I think that's probably one of the reasons why I've stayed so long, because the industry has just changed so much within those 30 years and so rapidly, particularly in the beginning. So when I started in January 1995, we only had a handful of brands. We were still considered probably one of the best distributors going. We weren't national at the time. We were just based in Victoria. And back then, there wasn't really a huge emphasis on table wines. And it was really just from the sort of mid-90s or perhaps early 90s onwards that it really started to surge forward, and a lot more brands were coming on board, whether that was fully fledged wineries or sort of virtual brands, people just making their own wines and looking for a distribution vehicle. I guess all of a sudden we found ourselves in such a growing industry. So I just kept changing rapidly all the time. And back then too, like our main customers being hospitality, so restaurants and fine wine retailers. In the mid-90s, we didn't have the plethora of venues that we have now in the different ranges. So that's really changed a lot. Things are just evolving so quickly. It was really hard to keep up. So I worked as an area manager for a long, long time for FD&C was what we were called, or Festorado we were called before that. And then we established another distribution company to sit alongside FD&C called Mezzanine. And it was about the same time that FD&C changed its name to Red and White, as everybody knows us now. So Joval has the two wine distribution parts to the business, Red and White being one and Mezzanine being the other. So we started Mezzanine in about 2003, I think from memory, and I'd just come back from maternity leave. So I moved into helping set that up and worked for Mezzanine until just recently when I went into the wine education arm of the business.
Through your journey, there must have been some key moments or mentors that have shaped your career.
Oh, wow, yeah. I've got plenty of mentors within our own business here at Joval Wines. So I guess Peter Price being the first one who was been working here, and everybody knew who Peter was, and she did a fabulous job in building the business, and she taught me the ropes. So, I'll never forget the contribution that she made. We got great people working here in this business. A couple of women I'd point out, Sally McGill, who still works with us, and she's been with the business longer than I have, and she's our national imports manager and Italian expert. Wealth of knowledge. She's taught me heaps. And actually in my educational role now, I work more closely alongside Sally, so I really enjoy that. Bree Richmond, who is our national brand and marketing manager. She's phenomenal. She's been here for 20 plus years, started off in customer service, worked her ass off, worked in every part of the business, and now, national brand and marketing. So she's been quite incredible, and one of the main reasons why we've got such a great portfolio with the brands we have. So yeah, lots of good people working here within the business. winemakers, someone like David Honan, for instance, who he owned Cape Mental and Cloudy Bay back in the 80s before he sold those. I mean, he was a great brand partner to have and taught me a lot in those early days as well.
You hold a WSET Diploma and now lead the WSET training. How has this program shaped your understanding of wine?
Well, I guess WSET platform is probably the most respected wine educational program there is. I mean, there are others, but I think it's one that's universally known. So if you do a WSET course, Award in Wines courses, you can take that and use that anywhere. It applies anywhere that you're working. I didn't do my accreditation myself until a bit later in life because once you get onto level 3, it's quite a big commitment in terms of study. So I did my level 3 in, I think it was 2017. And I always had the intention of doing my diploma, but I waited until they separated the spirits section out. So you had to if you were doing a diploma, you had to do a spirits component as well, which wasn't really up my alley. So I waited until it was just WSET Diploma in Wines. And that was in 2019. So I did it. I started it then. I didn't finish it till 22. I did my exam in May 2022, the last exam. It's a very, very challenging course when you're working full time because the amount of self-study, you really need to be self-motivated. Otherwise, you just won't get through. There's a lot of study that's involved because the final exam, they can ask you a question pretty much about anything. A lot of handwriting involved, long essays. It's really physically and mentally quite challenging. So I was kind of lucky in a way because it was during COVID, so you couldn't go anywhere. I still had to work pretty hard because we were, fighting as we could to keep the business going. And that word that I hate, pivoting. Yes, we're all pivoting to other ways to maximise our revenue. But you couldn't go anywhere on the weekends. So, it was a perfect time to study. And look, it really opened my eyes to so much more that there is to know about wine and to the understanding that you can't know everything. There's always something new to learn. There's always a new region popping up or a new grape variety that's been uncovered or a new trend. And so it wasn't just about wine regions and grape varieties. It's also about wine business, which I really, really enjoyed that part of it because I could loop it back into what I'd been doing as what I do here in terms with customers and my sales management background. And it's really helped me enormously to perform in my job better, doing that diploma. So really, really invaluable. I think here in Australia, we're just starting to understand how important wine education can be for those people that want to get a career in the wine industry, or even if you're just working part-time and your main game is something else. It can just help you enjoy what you're doing for the moment. Let's say you're a part-time waitress while you are studying something else. Just getting your level 2 accreditation can help you understand better what you're doing, enjoy your part-time role more, give the end customer that comes into your restaurant a better experience. And also that's only going to help the guy that owns the business or the person that owns the business. So it's a win-win for everybody, I think. And they're well priced. And as I said, you can take that accreditation anywhere with you.
So it sounds like it's been quite a valuable tool for you, and it would be a good tool for industry professionals and wine lovers.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, a lot of people that have got more time on their hands, wine lovers, retirees, etc., they love to do wine courses. There's plenty of great wine courses that you can go and do that are affiliated with retailers, but doing the WSET does give you an accreditation. So if you like to get that certificate and a pen at the end of it, then I guess WSET is a course for you. And at the Joval School of Wine, our main focus is on our customer base and educating hospitality staff and people working in wine retail, but also we're open to the public, so anybody can come and do one of our courses.
And so what do you think the most common misconception is for people when they start their wine education?
I don't know so much about misconceptions. I think everybody comes in to do their WSET thinks it's a difficult course. That's what they all say to me. So level 2 come in and they'll say, oh, I'm really worried about the exam. There's absolutely nothing to worry about if you do the recommended home study and you read the materials. You're working in wine, you're going to know a little bit about it anyway. If you do the recommended study, you're going to be fine. So I think that's a bit of a misconception. When it gets to level 3, that really ramps up a bit. There's a big difference between the learning outcomes in level 2 and level 3. And with that, the at-home or the required study outside of the classroom. And I think when people are ready to do level 3, they might have been working in restaurants for a while and they've got really, really good knowledge. And I think some students might come in to the course thinking, I don't really need to do that much to pass in terms of I've got my industry knowledge. But it doesn't really work like that. You need to be able to explain concepts and theories. as to why wines taste the way they do. And you have to make some arguments based on that. So when people come into level 3, they have heard it's hard. And I guess the misconception there might be that they can perhaps get away without doing some of that outside study. But they recommend, I think it's about 50 to 55 hours for level 3 to do outside of the 30-hour coursework. My feeling is you would need to do a lot more than that. Yeah, to do really well in the exam. But again, if you break it down, if you do some practice questions, if you read the material, if you make notes, if you do the study, you will get through.
Yeah, so it sounds like, you need to be kind of passionate about it and allow a suitable amount of time to get through it. And how do you then tailor wine education for different audiences, from hospitality professionals to everyday consumers?
It's interesting because people come to you with different levels of, I guess, academic experience. And if you haven't been in a classroom for a while or sat formal exams for a while, that can be quite a challenging kind of notion to be faced with. So I guess we just pick our audience, and also what we do is we really try and streamline our courses so that there's a lot of support there in terms of revision days. So for instance, because Matt Dunn in New South Wales, he runs the Joval School of Wine with me. He does all the classes in New South Wales and Queensland and look after Victoria and Tasmania. We're hoping to roll it out in some other states as well later in the year. So we've put together a couple of exam technique days to really help the students that may not have that much experience in sitting in a classroom or attending exams, and that will help them prepare for the exam as best as possible. Now, these days aren't compulsory, but we're here all the time. Matt and I, we work for Joval, so it's not like we're teachers that have been brought into the business from outside. So we can schedule these days into our calendar. So that's what we're doing to help students that might not have as much experience with exams, classroom learnings. And then for those, let's say, students that come in to do the class that might have already have a degree or another qualification in wine, they may not need that extra support, so they don't have to come to those additional support classes.
So it seems like you have an ability to really support people depending on where they are on their professional development.
Yeah, well, that's really our focus and that's our passion, because WSET globally have a very good pass rate for level 2, and then it dips really substantially for level 3 down to, I think it's around 50. It was 53% a couple of years ago. I think the last report was 57%. Now, we'd really like to bump that up. Our goal is to be getting, 75 to 80% of students passing level 3 initially, and then get that up over 90. I mean, that's a bit of a pie in the sky kind of aim, considering the global average is so low, but that's really what our focus is on. And just to add to that pass rate is really just reflected in the short written answer component of the exam, which the students need to pass. The vast majority pass the tasting component and the multiple choice, but they fall down on the short written answer and therefore they fail the whole exam. So you have to pass all 3 components. Yeah, so that's the sticking point.
Right. And why do you think that is? Because there's just so much information you need to be across for the short answers, or it's just a difficult concept for people to understand?
I guess it's twofold. First, you've got to make sure you have the knowledge. So if you haven't read a particular part of the book or studied it and a question comes up on it, then you're not going to be able to answer it. So that's the first point. You have to know that book inside out. The second part of it is being able to answer the question as set. So WSET work with a series of command verbs, and it's understanding those command verbs and what they mean. So for instance, explain. When you're asked to explain a concept in a WSET short written answer question, you need to link the fact that you know with the outcome. So it might be something as simple as explain why a cool climate gives certain flavours in wine, for instance. And the answer could be as simple as, well, cool climates help to retain acidity. Therefore, the wine's going to have more acidity. So you've got to use these linking words, link the fact you know with the outcome. And this is where students tend to have a few difficulties, and that's why we are focused on our revision days and our exam technique days to go through all of these concepts and help them put all this together so they're best prepared for when the exam comes.
Before you mentioned you had some great mentors, but generally the wine industry has traditionally been male-dominated. Mm-hmm. How's your experience as a woman with so much experience in this space been?
It's a challenging question because, I've got lots of great male friends in the wine business, and I don't want to be one of those people that kind of segment us between women and men, but I think from the stories I've heard and my own experiences, there is still, I think, a long way for us to go. Women still aren't getting the roles that they should, I don't think, in terms of the ratio with men. There's lots and lots of fantastic women's support groups that are around. I've been to conferences and I'm involved with that. I've got a great women's tasting group that I'm a part of, and that's all terrific. But I do think it's still very, very difficult for women in the wine business, whether you're working in production or whether you're working on my side or in sales and marketing. I don't think we get the same opportunities opening up as men, and I'm hoping that's going to change. I do see it changing now, but I think if you had a look at who holds the most senior positions in wine companies, women have still got a long way to go.
So do you think that's just an additional barrier there for women, or does it mirror other organisations?
Well, I think all organisations are working hard on making these changes, or whether they have formal or informal agendas. I think everybody's aware, the industry's aware of it, and I think it is changing. And look, use quotas. I don't know whether that's the right way to go either. You want the best people doing the best job, and you just want to be in an inclusive environment. I think it's always been considered a bit of a bloke's world, but that is changing.
You touched on it before. Are there any women in the industry that have inspired you?
As I said, Sally and Bree, we've got lots of fantastic women here that have worked here for a long time. There's several women, within Joval. Outside of that, I have some great mentors as well. Jill Sykes, who manages a retail store in South Melbourne, and she's been a great, mentor to me, particularly in my education journey. I actually did my level 3 with Winehouse, and she helped me with my diploma. We talk a lot about women in wine. She does a lot of work with SOMS Australia. Sarah Andrews, she's another one I should mention, ex-president of SOMS Australia, and she's a great force out there working for not just women in wine, but everybody wanting to get into the wine industry and helping them as much as she can. Wine Communicators of Australia, they're terrific. I was actually a mentor for them for the last couple of years, so mentoring young women coming into the wine industry. Didn't matter if you're in production or sales and marketing, just sort of mentor them around what roles are available, things that they might be doing to maximise their potential.
So what advice would you give a young woman looking to build a career in wine?
You've got to work hard, There's no two ways about it. Margins are slim in this business. So if you're in sales, you really need to be working hard to create a great network. Be honest, be authentic. I think that's really helped me. I've got a lot of friends that are customers that I've known for all that time, some great friends that I've made over those 30 years. And think by being yourself and being authentic, it goes a long way. They're probably the two things. Work hard, be authentic, don't give up, I guess. It's not all going to happen overnight. Wine is a slow build. Whether you're out there selling to customers, try and sort of explain this to our brand partners as well. Things don't happen overnight. If you're building a brand, if you're building a customer base, it takes a long time. People need to have trust our customers need to have trust in who they're working with. And that can take 2 or 3 years. They like to see longevity. They like to see the same salesperson. And that's what's been great about Joval, because we've got staff that have been here for a long time.
Yeah, no, it definitely sounds like you've got good buy-in from your employees here. So what excites you most about where the wine industry is heading?
Well, I'm a bit worried about it at the moment because, we're at the mercy of, market forces, and it's a bit of a crazy time, quite chaotic out there. We went into COVID, we flew out of that, and then with everybody out spending money, we've sort of took a bit of a dip last year with, people not spending any money at all, interest rates, all that sort of thing. People worried about their mortgages. And, wine's an expensive purchase. Most of the wines that we're dealing with are premium. They're not everyday purchases for the ordinary person. And, I think we need to understand that. So it's a really challenging time economically for everybody, for restaurants, for wine distributors. So we've just got to keep battling on and through it. And of course, now we've got the issues with the global markets, the tariffs, that's throwing everything into a bit of chaos. Nobody really knows what's happening. So a little bit worried. What am I excited about? Well, I'm really excited about the quality of wine we make here in Australia. I mean, it's never been better, really. And compared to the equivalent with European wines, so if you compare, top Australian Chardonnay with Burgundy, Burgundy's outrageous, their prices at the moment. They're only going to get worse. We're going to see some more increases coming through. Had a terrible year in 2024. That combined with the global uncertainty is going to push prices up. Our prices continue to go up as well, but we're still really great value compared to what you can get for an equivalent made wine, let's say, in Burgundy. Of course, they've got the history, they've got the vineyard age, they've got all of those things, and they've got that brand equity, but we are making amazing quality wines, and I think that's really exciting.
And how do you see wine education evolving over the next few years?
Well, I'm really hoping that it continues to grow. We've had a fantastic response to the Joval School of Wine. We've actually only been going officially since September 2023, so not that long at all. And I was lucky enough to be in the UK earlier this year in January, and I met with the CEO of WSET. And wine education in London is a really high priority for a lot of hospitality venues. I guess WSET, its home is in London, so that I guess that makes sense. But most people that work in hospitality in a professional capacity in London have either the level 3 or the level 4. So level 4 is a diploma. So it's really a high priority. I'm hoping that will transfer over here to Australia. And I think I can see the beginnings of that. Business owners and staff both see the benefits that it can bring to their business by having an accredited qualification. And Matt and I can see with the number of students that are enrolling on our courses that the demand is there. So we're just hoping to continue that to grow. And we really want to be at the forefront of that over the next few years.
And you mentioned challenges facing the Australian wine industry. Are there any up-and-coming trends we should be looking out for?
Okay, trends. Well, we tend to sort of follow trends that are happening overseas. I think we're still riding the wave of rosé, the pale-coloured Provence rosés. I still think that's a very big trend. Chilled reds, pet nat, that went through a bit of a phase, but I think we're sort of coming out of that. That's sort of natural wine, pet nat kind of phase. I hope now that we move from that into just really good quality wines, no matter how they're made. Organic and biodynamic wines, whether you're certified or whether practicing, that continues to be a trend, and I think that can only be a good thing. And I think you can really see the difference in biodynamically farmed wines, such as Cullen and Yangara that we have. You know, fantastic wines. You can really, I think, see that the quality come through in those wines from the way the soils are farmed. So I think that will continue. Alternative grape varieties, particularly Italian. I think Italian's really having a moment in the sun, whether that's because a lot of people tend to holiday in those sort of destinations. Greek wines as well, people holidaying in Greece, so you're seeing some of those. Grape varieties that people will drink on holidays and then come back and they want to relive their experience here, like Assertico, which is a Greek grape variety from the islands. And I've just forgotten the name of the island, which is just the main island everyone goes to.
Santorini?
Yes, Santorini, yes. And then Italian grape varieties from further down in Campania, so things like Greco di Tufo or Fiano. Those grape varieties being planted here in our warmer Mediterranean areas. And it's great to see that people are beginning to understand these different varieties, and so they'll go to a restaurant and they'll be able to order them. If they can pronounce it, they'll order it, yeah.
What are some of the great wines you've been drinking?
What wines have I been drinking? Well, I love champagne. So we're lucky enough within the Joval portfolio to have two leading champagne producers. A couple of my favourites from there. So the Comte de Champagne from Taittinger, 2013. I mean, these aren't everyday drinking wines, but it's absolutely stunning. So that's a Blanc de Blanc, very much a special occasion wine. And the Louis Roederer Rosé Vintage. We're on the 2017 now, but my Christmas Eve drink is always a bottle of the rosé. So last Christmas Eve it was a 2016. So that's a very special wine. And just a bit closer to home, Rising, which is a vineyard that we partly own in the northern part of the Yarra Valley. And I recently they hadn't been making Gamay for the last couple of years, but they've just recently released a Gamay 2024 vintage. And Anthony Fickus is a winemaker there. Not a huge make. I can't remember how many cases he produced, but that was stunning. And I think that Gamay, that's actually a trend too. I think we're going to see a bit more Gamay, whether it's from its spiritual home Beaujolais or Australian grown Gamay in places grown in Yarra Valley or places like Beechworth, which have a similar soil profile to Beaujolais. A little less expensive than Pinot Noir, but with a similar mouthfeel and that lovely sort of soft tannin profile. And that was a really good bottle of wine actually, and great price. So I'd recommend anyone getting their hands on a bottle of the Rising Gamay.
It's interesting. I was just down in Tassie, and it escapes me what the label was, but very small production. But there was Gamay. They were making Gamay down there, and it was quite good. Quite enjoyed it. And I must come clean too. Rotor Rosé Vintage is absolutely my favourite. I'd like to drink more of it, but you just have to have more special events, I think. Just lastly, is there any wine region in Australia you think's underrated or deserves a mention just before we go?
Well, I've been to quite a few wine regions, as you can imagine, and I'd like to keep visiting because every time you revisit a region, you learn something new, or there's been a cellar door that's new or has been renovated. So I don't know so much whether they're underrated, and I think it's great that there's so much tourism directed towards these regions, and lots of tourists are going, and they're perhaps we're working out their itinerary based on cellar doors and wineries. I think McLaren Vale is probably one of the nicest regions to go to, just to immerse yourself in wine, but also it's got the beaches as well. So it's a great spot to go if you want to combine wine with another aspect to your holiday. Eau Claire actually is maybe a little bit underrated. That's an amazing wine region to visit, and all the wineries are very close by. You can do that bike trail, that Riesling trail, and there's some fantastic places to eat, though I would definitely recommend the Claire to anybody that wants to spend a couple of days in a wine region.
So thanks, Hilary. That concludes the formal part of the podcast today, but I like to do a little segment called Glass Half Full. So it's just some rapid fire questions, just little answers. Don't need to overthink it. First thing.
Like a psychiatrist.
Yeah, well, first wine you ever loved?
Oh my God. Well, the first one I ever tasted was Black Tower, one of those Liebfraumilch. First one I ever loved. My God. Look, it was probably in a cask, to be honest. I can't remember.
It's all right. Or what's the best wine you've had this year?
Best one I've had this year would have to be the Comte de Champagne 2013.
Red or white?
Oh, can I say Pinot? No. Somebody once said to me, there's white wine, there's red wine, and there's Pinot. But if I have to choose red or white, it'll be white.
Favourite wine and food pairing?
Salted nuts and champagne. Mm-hmm.
Sounds good. One wine myth you'd love to debunk?
Sauvignon Blanc. Everyone's got this thing about Sauv Blanc, and while it's not my favourite wine, I do enjoy a glass from time to time, provided it's a good quality. And not all Sauvignon Blancs are the same. That's what I'd like to say.
Best piece of advice you've received in your career?
Don't give up. Keep going. Bang on those doors. You'll get there eventually.
Biggest challenge in wine education?
Probably getting my own accreditation. Really, I found that really challenging, but also very satisfying.
And if you weren't in wine, what do you think you'd be doing?
I've often thought about this. I wasn't in wine. I had my time again. I think I'd be a social worker.
That's nice. Favourite winery you've visited this year?
I have to say Pio Cesare in Elba in Torino earlier this year. They're renovating there. They're building a full new facility for their white wine production. Pio Cesare is an amazing winery because it's actually within the city walls of Elba. Most of the wineries are spread amongst the hills of the Langhe. So this was an amazing place to visit. Old Roman walls, quite incredible. So I'd have to say Pio Cesare.
Oh, that sounds amazing. What's one thing every wine lover should know?
You haven't had your best bottle yet. It's still to come.
Well, I think that's a good place to end, and always searching for that next bottle. So many wines out there, and I've really enjoyed talking with you today, and thanks for being on Behind the Wines.
Likewise. Thanks so much, Brent.
And that's a wrap for this episode of Behind the Wines. A huge thank you for joining us. Your support means everything. Like a good wine, the best stories are meant to be shared. So make sure you subscribe on your favourite podcast platform, leave a comment, and let us know your thoughts on our socials. And go to our website for some more stories, special offers, upcoming events, and exclusive content. And special thanks to PS Wine Selections for your ongoing support. Until next time, cheers.